Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Talk to the Fedora, where we chat about hard-hitting, honest entrepreneur wisdom that you can use to grow your small business. I'm your host, Jarrod Goldsmith from eSAX Virtual Events, and today we're very pleased to be welcoming Owen Meldrum. And Owen is a content producer and marketer extraordinaire. He's young, creative, and ambitious, with a passion for live streaming and all things creative media. Owen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Jared. I'm really excited to have this conversation. It's an honor and a pleasure. I hope we can provide some value and have a great conversation. I'm looking to learn from you as well.
Thank you, Owen. Let's start off. Where are you calling in from, please?
So I'm currently located on the west coast of Scotland, in a little seaside town called Ayr. I'm originally from Glasgow, but moved down here to study. And I graduated just as COVID hit, and decided that I preferred the beach to the city. So, working online and working remotely allows me to swim in the afternoons and get back and work in the evenings. And yeah, I absolutely love it. So, yeah, west coast of Scotland.
Sounds like a great life. Owen, so let's talk a bit about your background. Who are you and what are you all about, please?
Yeah, so I don't know how far back I should go, but I guess I mentioned it. I'm from the south side of Glasgow, just on the outside, a pretty unexciting working class town. Lots and lots of identical houses, and yeah, two great parents. My mother's American, from New Jersey. My dad's Scottish, from East Kilbride. And yeah, I grew up on the south side of Glasgow. Went to university here in Ayr. Studied filmmaking and screenwriting. And as I graduated, like I said, COVID hit, and I decided to jump with both feet into the deep end into entrepreneurialism and my own businesses.
So, what a, interesting background. Having a background in like theater production and writing. Let's talk.
Mm.
Why did you want to become an entrepreneur?
Well, it's interesting, and it puzzles me. So we talk about it a lot. There seems to be a gene in my family that skips generations and is fairly random in its in its appearance. But for instance, like my grandfather was a huge inspiration to me. He was an entrepreneur, started working for the New York Times in the late 70s, when it was much different than it is today. And moved on and worked with mining companies, worked with Yahoo, moved to Silicon Valley and done a lot of that stuff. So I definitely have this strange gene that makes me hungry for everything new, hungry for innovation, hungry to learn about people. Um, so I think that's kind of where I came, but it's kind of hard to realize it sometimes. So it took me, until I was almost not forced into it, but encouraged into it by COVID and by graduating university, to actually jump, you know, like I said, jump into the deep end and give it a run. And yeah, I just think it's something that is been partly nurtured, but is mostly just something genetic. I really do believe that.
Sure. I mean, people say that. Yeah, I've heard that before. Experiences skip generations. For instance, my parents are tone deaf, but my grandparents were very musical, and I got the
Mm,
music gene, so it skips generations. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, Owen, growing up, did you have a background in entrepreneurship? Like, did you mow lawns? Did you do something as a child?
Um, I've definitely always I was taught from a young age that you had to work. Um, and that came to me in very different ways. It was definitely paper rounds, and actually, I'll tell you a good story that obviously for years I never realised that it was entrepreneurial, but I was at a birthday party for like an uncle or something, right? When I was about 9 years old. Not something that's really that fun when you're 9 years old because obviously everyone's drinking and talking adult stuff, and it wasn't interesting. But I decided to, out of my boredom, I decided to start collecting glasses for the barman, and it let me go and talk to everyone and just have something to do. And before I knew it, by the end of the night, my pockets were bulging with pound coins. So at about 9 years old, I managed to make about £100, in 2 hours, collecting glasses. And, little things like that, yeah, paper rounds from when I was young, and then went into hospitality from when I was kind of 15. So the work ethic's always been there. And as I said, that entrepreneurial side of it has just been developing kind of under the radar for a long time.
That's really important, the whole concept of the hospitality industry, because
Mm,
we all know entrepreneurship. Yeah, you're solving a problem, you're creating something out of nothing, but it's working with people.
yeah.
And developing those people skills at a young age is essential. So, and you said yourself, you're young, so there's the future is really bright for you. I could tell.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think I don't know what it's like in the States and in other cultures, but hospitality's got a strange reputation here that it's not a real job, or it's not this or not that. And I understand why, that it's, famous for being low paid and overworked and all of these other things. But between doing that and my background in theatre and improv when I was younger, by the time I was 16, I was never a big guy. I was never threatening to anyone, but I could talk to anyone about anything, and it becomes a superpower because I was comfortable in any situation, no matter, what. It's actually the more challenging, the more interesting to me. If
Mm.
someone didn't speak English, I was like, okay, we're having a conversation. I'm going to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
So yeah, I definitely think I recommend, any kind of young people that I meet, like, get a job, even if you're in university and you don't need it for the money and you don't need anything like that. Just do it because it creates this ethic, and it shows you that it forces you to interact with people you wouldn't. All sorts of
absolutely.
different people, and I mean, some of my best connections have came from sitting and, chewing the fat, as we say, at the bar and talking away, and yeah. So yeah, definitely hospitality has been a big influence and driver in many ways.
Oh, often, yeah, we hear about entrepreneurs who are really introverted or they're tech
Mm,
oriented and they don't know how to deal with people. But
yeah,
being well rounded means networking and developing those relationships. So,
yeah.
yeah, excellent. So, Owen, let's talk about after you graduated.
Mhm.
What challenges did you face when you decided to go into the tech business?
Um, it was a lot of personal challenges, more than, any market challenges or anything like that. I've always been a bit of an optimist, and this is more just realism, is that there's opportunity everywhere, and I think once you start in a business, you realize that, and you realize that business isn't hard to get. It's running the business and managing your reputation and managing your finances and things like this, where, coming from my background, we didn't I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't know anyone. We weren't told in school you could start a business. I had to go and find that information out when I was 18 and 19, trying to, like, be like, I don't want to work to 4 in the morning every single night. Now I work to 5 in the morning instead. No.
Yeah, but then you go
um,
swimming in the ocean and then you come back and work.
yeah, exactly, exactly. At least I can choose when. Um, but yeah, I mean, definitely finances were just something that are actually really simple, but again, for me, boring. But more than that, daunting. You think that it's really bad, and taxes, and you need to manage it all by yourself. And the obviously the education system does nothing for that, which we can have a whole nother podcast about that. But
Yeah,
yeah, definitely that, and I would say understanding connections and what people's intentions are, understanding that, because I think I was quite naive. In fact, very naive in the start, where I was a bit like a Labrador, where anyone that said anything positive to me, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. And then you end up, you know, working 3 times as much and not getting paid for it, and just getting, but it's the process. Mistakes are always good. You just learn to love to fail, I think. And that's
absolutely.
that's been liberating for me.
Those are very important skills. I mean, I think these days they are starting to teach or at least talk about the concept of entrepreneurship in high schools.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. As far as I'm aware, they're not doing it here. We've got
Uh,
we've got a good education system, but it's very traditional and somewhat conservative, I think.
yeah.
Like, I remember in high school, we had a big assembly, and one of the teachers came out. They were like, "Okay, so some of you are going to go to university. Some of you are going to go to college, which is slightly different over here, shorter courses and different qualifications, and some of you aren't. And then they ended the presentation. That was it. And I was like, are they the only options?
The only options.
And
Wow.
yeah, and what happens if you don't want to go to university, you know? And it's crazy to see some of my old friends now who clearly weren't academic, similar to me,
Yeah.
but have started plastering companies or plumbing companies, or they're artists and they're doing all of these things that school never prepared them for. They took 3 years instead of going to university and built this brilliant business. So it's nice to see that, but a real shame that the education system isn't doing more. But I'm glad to hear that at least in the States and in Canada, they're starting to introduce that.
Oh, sure, sure. One of the things you mentioned was money and taxes. We were going to talk about that later,
Mm.
but that was a good segue into that. So let's talk about money tips when you're starting up a business. What do you think?
Don't listen to me for money tips. No, I mean, for me, I think what it comes down to is, one, if you're only focused on the money, you're going to fail. It's not going to work. It has to be genuine. You have to know. Yeah, that has to be secondary, I think. And it's not that you don't want to make money. You do want to make money. That's what business is about. That's how you continue, running your business and growing your business. Um, but I think Simon Sinek had a really good analogy for it. It's like fuel, um, but your business is the car. So you have to put fuel in the car, but fuel without a car is pointless. It has to be symbiotic. Um, but yeah, what I would say is just get an accountant quickly and understand it, but try not to get too worried about it. Um,
Well,
record
you also
everything.
talked about taxes. I mean, most of us don't have
Mm,
a background in bookkeeping or accounting or
no.
taxation, but a lot of the times people are starting up, oh, and we don't have money. I mean, if how would you suggest we go about doing that if we don't have resources? We're launching our business. We have a family, take care of a rent,
Mm,
mortgage. How does that work? What do you think?
it's tough. I mean, again, I'm in a super lucky position where I've got a lot of independence and a lot of freedom at the moment. Um, for me, it was, I was working in a bar 40 hours and working on my business 60 hours, for a year and a half, 2 years, until I had that confidence and ability to pack the bar in and move on. Um, yeah, for me, I think getting ready to start a business, it is cheap, but you have to understand that you need to live below your means regardless. But especially when you're living, you know, from what I would call kind of raw income, even if you're only going to get taxed 25% or 30%, with your guys' state tax and all that stuff, just put away 35. Just be safe and then live below whatever you have left. Because,
Hmm.
I don't think making money is the issue. It's people that spend too much money. And when I was able to realize that and live incredibly cheaply, and you give up a lot, but it's a long term game. You're not going to become a millionaire in 2 years when you start a business. It's not going to happen. So
It's very true. And a lot of the times we hear people starting a business. Why do you want to start a business? Oh, I want to have my 4-day work weeks, or
no.
3-day work weeks. No, I mean, hearing you work 100 hours a week to make ends meet and living below your means, this is the reality.
Oh yeah. And it's fun, and I'm not complaining about it, and I think that's the difference, is that people look at the end goal, so it's nice to see, the bar owner or the agency owner, whoever it is, that drives a nice car and does that, but very rarely are they under 30, and even then they are 1% of the population and they had a great start. They either had a lucky draw of the cards, or they're incredibly intelligent, or they timed the market incredibly well, and just not everyone's in that position, and you can't force that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it is a grind, and it has to be. That's where the love of, if you're doing it for money, you can do it for 5 years, you can do it for 10 years, but you're gonna hate it. I think, at least, when you do it and you find something that you love and you do it for free, and you can find a way to live like that, then that gives you a superpower.
Oh, I've always thought, I mean, you have so much wisdom for such a young person, Owen.
I, I
You know,
I don't know if it's wisdom or arrogance, one of the
well,
two.
I mean, let's put it this way. We've all come across people, and it's easy to tell if they're in it for the money
Mm.
versus, you're passionate, you love what you do. It's easy to work 100 hours a week because it doesn't feel like work.
No, absolutely not. And again, it's getting into those flow states and understanding that it's a long game, changing that perspective. That was a big thing for me. The first 6 months, I made zero money, and I was like, okay, this isn't going the way I thought it would go.
What did your parents think about this? Your family, were they supportive?
That's a really interesting one. I've been thinking about that. I'm just unbelievably grateful for the parents and the family I have. They are, again, not entrepreneurs. My dad's a social worker, like a youth worker, and my mother's a carer, like a home to home carer. So they're both yeah, like government workers and work incredibly hard, and have given me the opportunities. But no, they they're happy for me to do whatever I want, and they'll support me in anything. And I can't ask for anything more. So even when I said, when I was 16, when you need to decide what you want to do, which is incredibly young, um, I was like, I think I like film. And they were like, okay, go and study film then. Or go and, do you know what I mean? They weren't, see, when people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to do business because my dad says business will make you money. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just so glad I didn't have that. So they were supportive. But yeah, I think sometimes they felt a little bit, because I needed help a lot and they couldn't help me. It's almost like, when you start bringing math homework home
Yes.
and your
Yeah.
parents don't know how to do it, or you're working with your little cousin and you're like, oh, trigonometry, I don't remember that. That's kind of what I've experienced a little bit. But again, they've been completely supportive and just open to it. So again, just unbelievably grateful for the opportunity that I have
That's
there.
fantastic because at the end of the day, it's your life. You have to make it
Yeah.
work and follow your passion. A lot of the times, at least here in Ottawa, which is Canada's capital, it's known as a government town.
Mm.
Met so many people over the years who I don't know if you're familiar with the expression, the golden handcuffs.
Oh no! Please tell me though.
They're working in the government in a job that they don't like for the benefit, the pensions, the
The
insurance of it.
safety, the job safety.
And they
Yeah.
just can't leave because it's so good. And
Hmm.
they're afraid to leave. And I said, well, you might have a side hustle, starting up a business on the side, but
Yeah.
you never know if it's going to work until you treat it like you don't have an option.
Absolutely.
And then people will find a way to make things work. Owen, we talked about collaboration earlier,
Mm.
about working with other people, offering your services, trying perhaps even bartering. How important is the concept of collaboration for you?
It's everything for me. I try and almost define myself sometimes as just a communicator. So, where I'm going in my longer plans is just, build my network to the point, and it's getting there, already. It's unbelievable when you talk to people and you communicate honestly and want to collaborate, how
Hmm.
quickly you build those connections. So in terms of collaboration, it's not just necessary, it's crucial. For instance, we were just talking to you about, I've got some guys, some SEO specialists, search engine optimization, that is.
Yeah.
And I could spend 100 hours studying that and understanding it and working with it with all of my clients, but I don't want to. It's not interesting to me. And these guys are way better at it. And I'll never ever be as good as them. They're already 4 years ahead, and it would take me so much longer. So being able to understand your weaknesses is almost more important than understanding your strengths. And if you can find the right people to collaborate with that, you know, positively accent your services or anything like that, it's so crucial. I can't
I,
I
I want
can't
to I want to
yeah.
back up a bit.
Mhm.
Understanding your weaknesses is almost as important as understanding your strengths.
Yeah.
That is a brilliant quote that you just said.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very, very true because a lot of the times we start a business because we're good at XYZ. Yeah, we could do ABC. It would take us time and resources to learn it,
Yeah.
but it's much easier to pass that off to other people whose passion is
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. And that was something that I've actually only learned recently where, you know, I used to I would talk to someone, and when you talk to someone who runs a small business, they need everything. So I would talk to them and I'd go in and be like, oh, you need someone to help you with your social media? Yes, sure, I can do that for a couple hundred quid a month. Sure, that's easy. Do you have photos? Oh, right. So you need photography. Okay. Or you'd like a film as well, and you'd need a new website, and you want to start a blog, and you need to start doing that, and then before you know it, you're part of the business development team essentially. You're not just in marketing; you're doing everything. And I've had it before where I've taken it all on and not been able to, not. I've
Mhm.
failed in trying to do it all because it's too much work. And if there's a professional that specializes in that, it means that you shouldn't try and do it. Well, not you shouldn't try and do it, but if it's if the if the service is big enough that there's a profession around it, it's worth, I think, just going and collaborating with other people and saying, "This is what I can do," and
Yeah.
this is what I've got for you. I hope
And
that answers
also,
your question.
oh yeah, yeah, thank you. I mean, it also brings into the whole concept of the collaboration angle, which we
Mm,
talked about earlier. Bring in people who's with the expression whose jam is something that you don't want to learn or don't take the time to learn.
yeah,
It brings it into your circle, and then when potential client asks you, "Can you do this X Y Z?" Absolutely, and then you just call in your favors, your contacts,
yep.
and it's a nice little circle.
Absolutely. So it's just kind of like a toolbox, If a builder just
Yeah.
shows up with a hammer, they're not going to do a great job in your bathroom, But if they show up with two guys and a big toolbox full of tools, and and again, you can do a lot with a hammer, but to get the specialized tool to do the job properly, it makes it more efficient. It makes it cheaper sometimes, way more time efficient, and the product ends up way better. So yeah.
You talked about doing things more efficiently. Let's talk about the concept of processes, Owen. Do you care to share some processes that you found useful?
Um, Yeah, I guess. Is there any maybe a little bit more specific for me, just so I can,
Oh,
because
sure.
there's lots of,
Like,
I'm doing 400 processes a day, and probably not very organized also, but yeah, maybe something just a
well,
wee bit more. Is it
sure.
client side? Is it?
Let's talk about the first reach out to somebody. What's the next step? Do you have pre-made content? Do you have
Mm,
generic templates? Like,
yep, yep. So we're constantly developing and building off of our templates. But for instance, if I was to connect with someone or get a referral or get a inquiry, for me personally, I like to get on a call or meet them in person as soon as
uh
possible. It's the way that I communicate. I know English, I can write and read, but I can't sell via email, or I'm not good at it. So I like to get on a call. We call it a discovery call, and it's really casual. 15 to 30 minutes, and we just ask questions. That's all we do. That's
so
all we do.
important. A
Just
lot of the
listen.
times, I'm really glad you brought this up.
Mm,
A lot of the times, people say, "Oh, they're trying to sell something," and they just start talking for 20 minutes straight, trying to
yeah.
promote themselves, why they're so good. But you mentioned the word asking questions.
Mm.
How was that important for you?
Because if you don't know what they want and you don't know who they are, how can you possibly provide a good service or product? So, unless you understand them, the value that you're going to bring to them, their experience, their budget, there's no way you can do all the research in the world, but until you get down and talk to someone face to face, or, get a list of their numbers and their requirements, you're kind of shooting in the dark. And I feel like that's why tend to stay away from kind of cold emails and things like that. Is just because I've got clients like that before, but it's a lot more work. Instead of just naturally meeting people, talking to them, understanding their business, and then either saying yes, we can do this, or
Yeah.
no, but maybe I know someone, or let me know if you ever need it, and then 3 months later, 3 years later, they come back. So definitely listening and asking questions makes them feel valued as well. It's so important. If we got on the call today, and this is kind of strange for me, I don't usually talk this much, even though I'm an extrovert. So it's strange for you to be asking me the questions. Um, but yeah, it makes them feel so valued. If you got on the call and you're like, we can do this, this, and this. What do you want? Here you go. And you're the used car salesman. It just doesn't work, especially now where people are a lot more wise to that. I think maybe in the 80s, people would answer the phone and just be excited that someone was phoning them.
Yeah.
That those days are gone now. So I think, personal connection and understanding people and making a personal connection um, is peaking right now in terms of business opportunities. If you have that and the ability to do that, it helps a lot.
And I call that networking maturity.
Ooh, I like that.
Like, people need to understand the concept is not trying to sell, sell, sell. Oh, Owen, you got to hire me, like I said earlier,
Yeah.
because XYZ. It's tell me about some of your needs. What's changed since last time we spoke? Tell me
Hmm.
like how I can help you. And the potential client is giving you gold.
Absolutely. Because again, it almost allows them to sell to you. It's one of those ones that, and again, I didn't understand that for a long time, but when you get to the
Most
point
people
where they're
don't.
like,
That's why
we
it
need
takes time.
this and we need that, and this is what and all you need to say is, yeah, I'll do it, sure. And then you've kind of already, as long as the budget is okay and you get along all right, you're a good fit. It makes it much easier instead of chasing and chasing and chasing.
Yeah.
Which again can work, and I should probably do more of it, but um, it keeps me a lot happier being able to, kind of soft sell and do things more naturally and organically.
Very, very important. Yeah, and I think that's another good tip that we were sharing today. Thank you for that. We talked about the concept of relationships, networking, collaboration. Do you Now that things are starting to open up around the world, what about some networking tips that you would care to share?
Hmm. Again, I'm maybe I should have prefaced this. I'm so young and dumb that you shouldn't take any advice that I'm giving you. All this stuff. I think. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit too far. But I guess for networking tips, it's just being genuine. And finding those circles that you can be of value in, and people have value to you.
Mhm.
Um, you can go to the biggest, you can go to Event Tech Live or something like that, and hey, you make hundreds and thousands of connections, but they're also making hundreds and thousands of connections. So start small, start with your local area, your friends, your family, your acquaintances that are kind of professional connections, small business owners. A friend of mine was talking about, I think he called it a traffic light circle.
Okay.
So essentially, if you imagine three circles, so the one in the center is green. That's all your first connections, right? Kind of like LinkedIn. So the guys that you are connected with, the guys and girls that know you, like you, are either professional or personal contacts that you can either leverage or help or be of value to. That's your goal. That's your green. That's where you want to be hitting. They're the easiest sales, the low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And then he talked about the orange, which was your kind of second connection. So their friends, their families, people that maybe you're a customer of, like a local business, but you don't really know them. You can try and get a referral into that and try and bring them closer into that green zone. And then you've got your reds, which are your cold emails, the people you don't know, the just the
Mhm.
more random sort of people you'd love to work with, but you don't have any reason to work with them almost. And that was quite helpful for me to understand that. And I've made more of an effort now to, instead of looking at being, oh, I'd love to work with Microsoft, I'd love to work with, whatever, great beer brands or whiskey brands that are huge. Why not look around the corner? Why not look at the people who you can actually bring value to and that you have more of a reason to work with, instead of being forced into that kind of cold sell environment. So I'm not sure if that was a networking tip, but
Oh, it's very true. I mean, leveraging the people who are already familiar and comfortable with you, because you
yeah.
also mentioned the term being genuine.
Mm.
And I have a few videos, actually lots of videos, but a few talking about the whole idea on how important it is to be genuine. When you're talking to somebody, it doesn't matter if it's a first meeting or third meeting, people see through fake. They can
Oh yeah.
tell.
Oh yeah.
And like we mentioned earlier, if you're in it for the money or you don't care about them, but you're just trying to get their connections, people see that. And being genuine, just like we have, why lie? Be who you are, and people will respect that and trust. is so
Mm,
important for any business relationship.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'm interested to know what you think about this. Is one thing that's really, I think, important to realize as well is that the world is abundant. Okay, there's more things, businesses, opportunities. There's more art and culture and experiences than you could ever hope to access. Okay, there's no way you're ever going to achieve all of the opportunity there. So why go after the fake ones, and why try to lie about, if you're just genuine, and I do believe this, it's really hard to stay on it sometimes and stay focused on it, is that if you're genuine, it might take longer, but instead of, you know, putting your square peg into a round hole of of an industry, or of a network that you don't really fit in, and you never will because your personality doesn't suit or your skills don't suit,
Yeah.
why not just be patient and allow that your own network and your own industry to kind of build around you? I'm interested to see. Obviously, you've got a lot more experience than I do, and how you've successfully done that. Um,
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. It's about credibility. Doesn't matter
mm,
if it's your industry or in your little circle. People talk. They talk about, oh, have you heard of the guy with the hat? You talk about my experiences.
mhm,
Oh, yeah, 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 the saxophone guy or whatever, the networking guy. And what do you want to have people say about you? So
mm,
always being genuine, always being authentic and
yeah,
credible, because it's your reputation. Everybody says your reputation precedes you. It starts at the very, very beginning of
mhm,
launching a business, your very first outreach on social media or the events you attend. I've always been a big believer of not being, the expression being a taker versus a giver.
totally.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I started eSAX 10 years ago was I've been to so many events and people just give out business cards, giving out business cards,
Yep,
walking to every person in the room versus, I would wait until somebody asked me for a business card. Again, it
yep,
took time for me to realize this
mhm,
and then explain, have them interested in you. But that takes time to develop the rapport. So it's about the credibility,
yeah,
the
absolutely. Yeah,
time.
that's brilliant. Yeah, one of um a, a good mentor of mine once said, the hardest thing in business is to say no. And
Yeah.
this is slightly maybe on a different tangent, but when you're meeting people, and everyone always wants to work, especially in the States and Canada. I notice it's just so abundant, and everyone's so positive in a business sense, so it's professional and positive. Whereas here, we've talked about this before, about slightly more conservative and slightly different culture over here. But being able to understand that, okay, this is a great idea and it might work, but unfortunately these problems are not going to be solved by me today. These things, and being able just to say, listen, you're a great guy. I would love to work with you, but no, it's really, really hard. And being able to do that again gives you so much more, um, I guess, yeah, I guess, it builds your reputation because it shows that you can say no, and that you're not the guy that says yes to everything, wheeler dealer, doing things, all the time, kind of jack of all trades, master of none. Still better than a master of one, remember, but you don't want to, yeah, you don't want to overstretch yourself. And I found myself in those
Yeah.
positions
It's very
multiple
true because
times.
nobody wants to turn away a gig. But if it's
Hmm.
going to take you a lot longer to understand the concept and become like an expert in it,
Yeah.
and to the detriment of some of your other clients, it's not worth the time. Or you could tell the person who's just trying to haggle, get the lowest price, and will take a lot of time on your hands.
Yeah.
Saying no, it's tough to say
Hmm.
no.
Absolutely. Especially when you're starting out and you are scrapping for every, $50, $100, and oh, I could knock off $25, or I could do this. But
Yeah.
again, and yeah, in my experience, and again, I still do it sometimes if it's charities or local businesses or people I just generally want to work with. But again, in my experience, it doesn't work out well because you end up working twice as much as you should for half as much money. So you
Yeah.
don't enjoy doing the work, and then the product gets affected, the service gets affected, the relationship breaks down, your reputation's ruined, you didn't even make that much money, and the product was. So it's like a lose lose lose. Instead of saying, you know, these are my prices. I'm a professional, and believing it and being confident in yourself and saying it is way harder than you think. But once you do it,
Yeah.
you do start to find those, those right clients, and it's much better to have 10 leads and take one than have than have 10 leads, take three, and then they all fail because you were trying to do too much.
Yeah, very true. Setting your prices is always tough. Industry
Really tough.
standard, you set your price high, low, medium, or like, rock bottom. And when I started with the band, like again 10 years ago, we priced ourselves quite low. Then I realized we're the only type of band around that does this, so we priced ourselves high.
Mm.
And actually, a few weeks ago, somebody was talking to somebody and say, "Oh, your prices are too high. Why is that?" I said, "Well, one, you won't find another band like this. Two, you'll never find somebody as organized and friendly and
Mm,
entrepreneurship minded as me. So you're working directly with me.
absolutely.
Not sure if
Um,
that guy is going to be a good client though, but
absolutely. So, what do you think about the idea of perceived value?
it's the reputation. If you
Yeah.
have information on social media, if people Google you or your business,
Mm,
and 30 pages of Google show up, all your social media links, your business links, testimonials, videos, podcasts, it adds more credibility,
hmm.
right? So perceived value, Owen, I think is everything. When people look for a purchase these days, like a high value purchase, obviously they look at reviews, testimonials. As an entrepreneur, it's always wise to get as many as you can to make it look like you're more established.
Mm,
Especially if you're just starting out. Let's say you just opened up a window cleaning company a month ago, but you already have 20 testimonials online
yep.
and you're active on social media.
Yep.
You know how to leverage the SEO. It makes you look more established.
Absolutely.
And I think that's very, very
Yep.
key.
And what about perceived value in terms of pricing?
Again, it depends on a number of
Depends on
factors.
other factors, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
but
go on.
oh no, please go ahead.
Well, I was just going to give you a little anecdote, and it was a huge lesson for us. We recently went and pitched for an outdoor adventure company to do their media and marketing, and we developed this pitch and thought, right, okay, this is how much this is going to cost. We're not going to spare any expense. We're going to go for it. We're going to have 3, 4 guys working on this, all part-time freelancers, but it's going to be a big project. But we know this guy doesn't have a huge amount of cash, so let's do it fairly.
Yeah.
So we submit the proposal. He says, "Yep, that sounds great. Absolutely. Well, why don't you guys come up?" So we go up into the Highlands. This is a great time. We're kayaking and you know, gorge walking and doing all this great stuff with them. And then we're driving back one day, and this guy says, "So, your quote. I've just got a question for you. How are you guys so cheap?" And the penny dropped, and we were like, "Oh no." And it actually hurt our not reputation, but I think it hurt the relationship because we were so under. So like the next, we quoted, let's call it 1,500 a month. The next quote was 2,500. So we came under, but we had priced properly. Like we have a pricing structure. We're not making 100% on what we do, but
Yeah.
we're still building. We're a young business, and we want to make it affordable. But I felt that it actually changed the dynamic of it, where he didn't value us as much purely because of the price tag that we held.
Mm.
And we'd done everything right. We nailed all the meetings and all the proposals and everything. But sometimes being able to gauge how much value you're going to bring to that individual is just as important as how much you think you're valued as, and it's really hard to work on that. That's what I'm trying to work on right now. So if you have any tips on that, I think that would be really valuable.
Absolutely, Owen. I mean, we could talk more offline about that, but
Mm,
for now, I mean, that could be a lesson learned. Setting your pricing structure is always a tough one. People are adjusting all the time. Like, for instance, let me talk about the virtual side, right? When I started hosting virtual events on this amazing platform, I priced myself quite low to begin with,
mhm.
and I was very, very busy. And then I realized I'm a global expert on this. I could command a lot more. And I did, to the point where people might look at my prices and say, wow, this guy's way out of touch. But other people, like multinationals and large corporate clients, they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll pay that.
Yep.
And knowing what you're offering, and everybody says, what's it mean to be true to yourself?
Mm,
Well, being an expert in your industry, and
yep.
again, that credibility. Can you charge $100 or £100 an hour or £400 an hour? Why?
Yep.
Oh, well, here XYZ, we have all these great clients and blah 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 as testimonials, but at the beginning, it's always tough. And yeah, we've all done freebie gigs, for the
Mhm.
exposure. Oh, don't get me talking about that. I could talk for an hour on that.
Years of photography has made me hate
Yeah,
every single, well, not hate, dislike every single promoter, gig, venue holder, bar manager. They are terrible for it. But
yeah,
and everyone has it, in freelancing and creative media, artists, everything. It happens. But again, the hardest thing is to say no. So at some point, you have to say no. I am more valuable than a beer at the end of the night. It's
yeah. Or you bar
yeah.
tab. Yeah, that's right. But understanding the value that you're offering to people, and it's tough, right? You don't want to value yourself so low, but we've all done it. And it's a learning experience. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the questions I was going to ask you is this some of the failures or learning experiences. I guess this would be one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's definitely one of them. And I think I read something quite interesting the other day is that if you have 100 clients and you charge them $100, if you double your prices and lose half your clients, you've done is doubled your time. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
so again, and usually the people that pay more, not always, the people that can pay more and can afford that, like you're talking about your multinationals, your corporates, they have that budget, so they can say, "Yeah, there you go," and they're not worried about it. They're not penny pinching. They're not,
yeah,
you know, needing every single money back. They're not needing a 300% ROI to make it worth it. So there's definitely, there's peaks and troughs with that as well. And I think it depends on the market and depends on your skills and your niche as well. But I'm just really interested in how you can do that because sometimes you do look at that and you're like, how are they pricing that? You know, but you realize that people were paying for it and it's better quality leads, it's better quality work, and yeah, it's definitely something to pay attention to, I would say, and it's something I'm trying to learn and fully understand right now.
yeah. At the end of the day, I still think it's in the back of all our fedoras that we say, "Oh, you're spending, £400 on this, but the next quote was 300. Oh, obviously they must be better."
Yeah.
And I still think that that intonation, it's still within us
Oh
to
no,
think.
absolutely, yeah, and I think that's the core of the perceived value idea that I was kind of looking for, is that if you offer your service or 2 bars of soap or two saxophones and one's 300 and one's 500, it's actually same saxophone, but the one at 500 people will say is better.
Yeah.
And it's just something to consider, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time to develop the
Mhm.
pricing structure. We're almost near the end of our segment today, Owen.
Yeah.
What successes are you most proud of?
I've tried to celebrate the small wins. Um, Positive interactions like the one we're having today, I really enjoy. You get big ones, signing clients is always fun when you get the yes and you get the signature and,
Yeah,
that's all good. But, yeah, invoices getting paid is great. It feels nice. But I think really for me, it's when you have a conversation and you can spark with someone and you can understand, oh, this could work. We could do things. There's potential here. There's something new,
yeah,
whenever there's that, and that's definitely my creative side. That runs that, and I'm almost afraid that that's getting smaller and smaller as I get further into business development. But I'm trying to keep it nourished. Um, but yeah, I think the small wins, personal achievements. I like to run. I like to swim. I like to do all that. So yeah, I celebrate the small wins. I don't.
I mean, we have to. If it's just the big wins, then we're going to be feeling let down almost
Yeah,
every day.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. If you might get one big win a month, so you're going to feel like crap for 29 days. No,
Yeah,
thank you. You
yeah.
know.
Excellent. Well, yeah, like a win. Yeah, well, we're having a great podcast today. A win could be, hey, you're sending an invoice.
Yeah.
Hey, excellent. Those are all great
Yep.
little wins. So, Owen, let's talk about what's next. Where do you want to be in about a year from now?
That's hard. That's a good one. Again, I think I'm going to focus the next 6 months on slightly more conservative but solid growth. Really focusing on my more kind of personal brand and personal connections with people, and understanding that your investment in time and things like that, your investment in people will pay dividends in so many ways, not just monetary. So I'm really just trying to practice patience and gratitude. And if I'm still happy and gracious next year, that's
Yeah.
good for me. So I don't know if that's not optimistic enough for you or not um, capitalist enough for you, but I think along with that comes growth in business.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to just focus on the practices behind it all, and really just solidify those building blocks and continue to expand my network. Really.
Well, thank you, Owen. I have no doubt that in the future you're going to achieve even greater success, and maybe in a while we could have you back on and talk about some of the additional wisdom that you've had
Yeah, that
to
would be
share.
brilliant. I'd love to learn more about you and your background as well. So we might need to flip the script on this one, and and me interview you the next time.
Oh, thank you, Owen. My pleasure. Any final words of wisdom? One, I just want to reiterate again. You said something to the effect that understanding your um, weaknesses can, in some cases, be stronger than your strengths.
hmm Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of pessimistic, and if you're really good at stuff, just do it. You know, I guess understanding you. Yeah, if you want me to expand on that, I guess it's just yeah, like no, like if you don't like finances, that's okay. If you don't like selling, that's also okay. If you don't like the invoices and you know, you just have to play to your strengths. Some things you will have to learn. You have to wear a lot of hats, not just
Yeah,
fedoras. You need to wear everything when you're
yeah,
starting out. But um, as quickly as possible, yeah, try and outsource that stuff, and allow yourself to do what you want to do, what you love. And I think, as far as I'm aware, it works out. If you can wake up happy, that you're successful. That's it. If you can
but
wake up and go to bed happy, it doesn't matter.
when things start getting hard, I always encourage people to, why did you start your business in the first place? What was that passion, that
Mm,
fire in your belly? Do you still have that? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But it gets deeper and it changes, and you get
Mhm.
a lot more. Because see, sometimes when people ask me what I do, I'm like, it depends on the time of day, or it depends on what project I'm focused on at the moment. Because I might have a 3-month project that's working on, you know, business development for a cafe, or for sometimes like huge projects. At the moment I'm working on gathering funding for property development. I've never done that before, but so it's finding new challenges all the time, but keeping some sort of thread through it. So for me, it's communication and technology. If I can do that in any industry and in any scenario, and I can find what fits, then that fire's definitely going, and it's not going out anytime soon.
Brilliant. Let's hope it lasts for a long time. Oh, and how can somebody get in contact with you, please?
You can contact me at owen@canavid.com. You can hit up on our Instagram, Canavid, and we've got a new website coming out at the first of next month, so just in about 2 weeks. So it'd be great if you could link that down below. And yeah, please reach out if to contact if you need any advice or consultations, or just a chat. I would absolutely love to connect with your audience and understand more about their journeys as well.
Thank you so much, Owen. So today, folks, on the Talk to the Fedora segment, we were joined by Owen Meldrum. Owen, thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Well, thank you, Jarrod. It was an absolute pleasure and an honour to share this time. Cheers.
Thank you.